Hello, Buddhist tribe. How are you all doing today? I wanted to bring you a quick update, weekly world update. Obviously, we were expecting big things to go down this past weekend, and I think, fortunately for all, the timelines seem to have changed, and nothing major happened. And I think we can all be grateful for that because it would have been chaos if on the 2nd or 3rd of September, predictions uh, did come true about a zombie apocalypse. Yes. So we can all be thankful nothing happened, but it doesn't mean nothing's going to happen in the future. So we need to keep manifesting the positive timeline. There are a lot of things going on in the world right now. Things are shifting. China's entered the Taiwanese airspace with different elements, drones, ships, etc. So that's very interesting. But the thing that I'm working on now that I'm most excited about is the subject of natural law and claiming back our sovereignty, which I know I have mentioned in previous shows, but I'm still working on the subject. It's quite complex. I am looking for a team that can work on this with me, but right now I'm doing the research myself and I'm finding a lot of very interesting information, I must tell you. So I'm super excited about it, but it's a very heavy subject, so we need to work through it. But it's all starting to make sense for me, but that's the good news. So I want to bring it to you in a very simple, digestible format, and then work on templates and tools and help to basically get us out of the artificial legal system that have been imposed on us. So basically, I mean, natural law is the most supreme law that you can have. The problem came in, they all duped us because they told us that when you are born, you need a birth certificate, right? Because you need to be a citizen. So basically, what the birth certificate is all about, your mother who signs the birth certificate, where's the word that I'm looking for? She basically signs your birth certificate over to the government as an informant. So you become effectively a vessel of the state or a ship lost at sea. These are all very technical terms that you can go and look up, and it's very real. I know it sounds strange, but it really, really is real. You start looking at syntax, grammar, the meaning of words, and what these words really mean. You'll be so shocked. So, as I said, your birth certificate, basically, your mother sign you over to the state as a vessel, as a dead object. So unless you come up and say, "Hey, I'm alive and I'm a natural person," they assume you're dead, basically. You're basically a shipping company, and this government that you're signing yourself over to is a corporation. So in most countries, if not all, there are two entities. The one is the country itself, let's say the Republic of South Africa or the United States of America. Then these buggers, the Rockefellers and the 13 families came around and they devised a very clever system. They set up the Reserve Bank in all of these countries, and it's all owned by the Crown. Then they set up a corporation. So there is something called the United States Inc., which is a corporation. So when your birth certificate is signed over to the United States Inc., you become a citizen of the United States Inc. I'm using this as an example, but it's pretty much the same for every country. And if you look at what the word citizen means or where it comes from, basically it stands for city, and Zen stands for employee. So you become an employee of the corporation. That's the only way that they can impose these fraudulent bylaws onto us, because we are effectively consented to being employees of this corporation, which pretends to be the actual state. That is in a nutshell. So this birth certificate should be noted, though, that the certificate is not you. It's a piece of paper. It's got your name in all caps. I've mentioned this before. It's basically your straw man. And when this birth certificate is generated, the bank basically will trade your birth certificate on the stock market. They will use it as a debt tool, and they'll make money throughout your life on this birth certificate. But when we learn that we are actually not just the fiduciary of this so-called trust that gets registered after you're born, but we're also the beneficiary. So we don't need to take on the responsibilities of that piece of paper. Let's say you get, I don't know, sued or whatever the case is. You are not that piece of paper. You are a natural person that has a right to live on this planet, an indigenous right to live on this planet, because you are from this planet. You're born here. So we need to start separating ourselves from this piece of paper, the piece of paper with your name in all caps, which stands for this vessel that the state owns, which represents you, but it's not you. So we need to start separating these two. So basically what we need to do, the big thing that we need to do, is we need to have an affidavit of repudiation of citizenship, because we don't want to be a citizen of the corporation. We want to be a state national of the country itself that we live in. Once you do that, they don't have jurisdiction over you. They only have jurisdiction over you because you are a citizen of their corporation. And jurisdiction, that's another word that is being abused. You will find that they mention things like person a lot as well. Like, you're a person, right? Would you consider yourself a person? Yes, I guess so. What does person mean? We literally look it up in Wikipedia. A person means the root word is purser, which is an office on a ship, the signatory officer on a ship. So when the ship, for example, a real ship docks somewhere in a new country, that officer becomes the signatory officer. And they have to go and pay the taxes. So they represent the ship. So as a person, you basically represent your birth certificate. So this is a very interesting rabbit hole. There are some I said this before, very smart people in the US currently unpacking this. Did you know that there's currently already hundreds of thousands of people in the US that are no longer citizens of US Inc.? They are natural human beings following natural law. The natural law of the land is basically, the primary law is do no harm. So as long as you're not doing any harm to your neighbor or another person or an animal or property, you are within your rights. There's a lot of other things that are going to come into play and which I'll unpack. But basically, if you look at when you buy property, when you registered it as residential property, now what does that mean? A resident, the literal meaning of a resident is someone there to do temporary business. So you don't actually even own your title deed. You paid for it, but you don't actually own it. But there is a way to own your land outright. And we'll be getting there in this series. So I am looking for a group of researchers and smart people to work with me on this project, because I believe we need to bring this information en masse to the people. The problem is, even if you have this affidavit and you've repudiated your citizenship, you're showing that you are a natural person of this land. Now, according to that, you don't need a license to drive a vehicle. Your vehicle doesn't need to be licensed, and you don't need a driver's license. The only time you need a license is when you're using your vehicle for commerce. If you're just driving yourself around, you don't need a license. Now, think about you being pulled over. The officer asks, "Where's your driver's license?" And you say, "Well, I'm sorry, officer, I think you are confused because you don't have any jurisdiction over me. I'm a natural person. I'm a state national. I'm not a citizen of United States, Inc., or whatever your country is. Each country has a different name." So there's two of everything. There's the country itself, and then there's a corporation. And I've heard this information for a very long time, but for the first time now, I've heard it very nicely, practically unpacked in a way that I very clearly understand, and I have verified this information, so it's no longer a theory, it's fact. But the problem is, if the police officer does pull you over, he will not know what you're talking about because he's not informed. So unfortunately, you will experience some discomfort. You may be locked up, and that's not going to be fun. So I want to make this process easier for people. I don't know why it has to be a state secret. So in the US, I say to hundreds of thousands of people have already become state nationals. By the way, Trump is a state national. Hillary Clinton is a state national. All these guys are in the know. So they've already done it. They've already repudiated their citizenship to a corporation. Why does this need to be a state secret? The whole legal system has been put in place to artificially control us. And everyone is part of the system. The judges, the attorneys, the advocates, all of them. They're perpetuating the system and they're sucking us dry. And I, for one, have had enough, and I know you've had enough as well. This is why I am going to be spending a lot of time on this project. And that is why I want us to do it I want hundreds, thousands of people to do this. I want everyone to get on board, because then they can't ignore us. We stand up, and we are, even if you're a couple of thousand people in a city doing this, you inform them. This is what's happening. We're no longer citizens. So inform your officers. The police are just people who are implementing policies on behalf of the corporation, believe it or not. That's what police, by the way, stands for. They're upholding policy. That's where the root word comes from. So that they can inform their officers and their minions that when you pull people over and this is what they're going to say, you have to take them seriously, and you don't have jurisdiction. Because that's going to make life easier. And once the cat is out of the bag, it's going to be a ripple effect, because Gesara is not going to happen unless we wake up and we claim our sovereignty. People must wake up. Once we wake enough people up, once enough of us stand up, once enough of us claim our sovereignty, this bad dream is going to end. Not that I'm not happy and I don't enjoy life, but I see people, and I see people suffering, and I see people struggling to pay their bills and working 3 jobs just to put their kids through school and survive, and then they're still being taxed and to the hilt. This is not a way to live. And if you think this is life, then you are very, very sadly misguided. You're deluded. This is not life. Life is much more beautiful than this. We're not meant to work like slaves. Think about it. Look at all the different taxes we pay to our government. It's a list of 30 odd items. We literally get taxed on money that's already been taxed, and then we still get taxed when there's money left over. Seriously, guys, this is a joke. So I'm going to be unraveling this whole story because I want to bring more of this information forward and make it easier for the people to understand, firstly. And secondly, I want them to be able to take action in an easy, digestible way. I want it to be practical, like I said before. I don't want to just talk about it. I don't want to just seem like I'm giving you this information and I know something that you don't. No, we're all in this together. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all neighbors, and we can do this together. They cannot ignore us. And that's when our freedom starts. I'm very serious when I say this. Once you've woken up and you see this matrix system that they've created for us, when you can see it clearly from above, I always feel like I'm looking down on the world and I see people running like rats in circles or on a hamster wheel. They're all doing this every day, same thing. And it's also meaningless. We can do meaningful stuff, but we've got to get rid of the lack. We've got to get rid of the suffering. And we've got to get rid of the mind control. Once we do this, we can step into a whole new earth where we are sovereign beings. We are accountable for our own lives. We're no longer victims, fully accountable for our lives. Take full responsibility for our lives. And we can live with love and peace and harmony. We can live a joyful, meaningful life. We can make a difference. We can do things that we are passionate about. That's what I'm passionate about. So let me know in the comments if this resonates with you. I'm still finding the right way to bring this information across. It may be a webinar. It may be a set of tools. It may be a one-on-one consultation format once I have established a team. I'm still working out the details. Think about what a big role law plays in our lives, or the legal system. We all have to abide by our country's legal system, right? There's so many different laws that they've imposed on us. Do you think they teach us any of that stuff in school? No. Wouldn't you consider that an essential life skill? To know what are the laws that we have to live by? No. They want us to know as little as possible. By the way, there's also a difference between law and legal. Law is actually derived from natural law. Legal is the system that they've implemented that relates to corporations. That's why when you are a citizen and you have a birth certificate, you're actually a dead corporation to them. They trade you on the stock exchange, and you have to abide by this corporation's legal bylaws. Because that's what they are. They're bylaws. Phew. This is going to get interesting. So governments have rules, codes, and statutes. These are not laws. They're corporate bylaws for corporates and employees. Why are you following them? Because you gave up your rights. But there's a way to get out of the system. That's the good news. and we're going to do it together. So please let me know in the comments who's keen to hear more. We're going to talk about how you can take dominion back. We're going to talk about, there's 3 kinds of law: water, land, and air. Actually, there's space as well, but that we'll get to at a much later stage. At this stage, that doesn't concern us right now. Water or maritime law is anything to do with commerce, contracts, trusts, and title law. Land's got everything to do with property and equity law, and air's got everything to do with natural law. So air's at this stage the highest supreme law, and water is the kind of the lowest denominator. Yeah, so the money that we use is actually not money. They tender note from the bank. It's not real money. It's not backed by anything. So money as we know it, currency as we know it, is going to change rapidly as well. The dollar will tank because it's just fiat money and they're just printing more and more. It's all going to go back to commodities: gold, silver, heavy metals, and other commodities. Wouldn't that be wonderful? The funny thing is that all of our corporations, our so-called countries, are owned by the crown. Yep. We think they stopped colonizing the world many, many years ago. They're just doing it behind the scenes. They still own us. Own us. Not really, but with this incorporating our countries, they own us. So it's also got to do, this trust that is set up against your birth certificate is called a Sister QV trust, and it's basically registered at the Vatican. So the Vatican basically siphons money from everyone in the world, basically. You or your birth certificate or your trust is worth billions. You didn't know that, right? That's what the banks use. That's what the governments use. That they use it as a kind of a debt that they can trade, that they can, it's a kind of a security, if you will. But you never see any of that money. But all of that is going to change once Gesara is implemented. Because once Gesara is implemented, all of that money will flow back to its rightful owners, you, me, and all of our neighbors, everyone around the world. But we can't wait for Gesara to happen. We must take back our sovereignty ourselves. We got to do it now. That's why I'm urging you to get on board, because we can't sit back. Gesara is very complicated, and we've got to be ready for that. And by the way, Gesara Nasara was already signed in 2001. It was going to be announced the day after 9/11 happened. And then 9/11 happened, and it was never announced. So it's been lying there for 20 years, but clearly the world is ready for that. And there's been a lot of rumblings that it's going to be announced soon. But we got to do the work. We got to get out of victimhood. We got to get our shit together and claim our sovereignty back. And it's not difficult. I mean, what have we got to be scared of? They the 1%. We are the 99%. We've got the power. Step into your power. You are much more powerful than you've ever been told. Let's do this together. I look forward to the ride. It's going to be an exciting one. So please join me. And if you think this will resonate with others, please share the video. I will bring a lot more information, and I'll back a lot of these things up that might sound a little bit foreign right now, but believe me, I've researched it and it's all very legit. You can also look up a guy called David Strait in the US. He is a fantastic man. I'm going to say much about him. Look him up. You can learn a lot from him as well if you want to dive down the rabbit hole and do the research yourself. Obviously, very much focused on the US. But yeah, very, very smart guy. I suspect we're going to be hearing a lot more from him in the months and years ahead. So don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. And please ring the notification bell. Otherwise, you won't be informed when new videos appear. So please do that so we can grow this information, this channel, get out to more people, and create a movement. I'm inviting everyone into this movement. Anyway, that's it for me. That's my rant for today. I'm not even giving you much else in terms of world updates because this is so important for me. I just really want everyone on board with this. So thank you for tuning in, and I will see you soon. Sending you lots of love.